Hey, friends, welcome back to Pain to Passion Live. This is going to be such a fun conversation. I'm really excited because I get to talk to my friend, Melissa Smallwood, today. She is incredible. You guys are going to love her. Actually, have never met Melissa in person. We met on Instagram. Like, Melissa, do you even remember how we connected on Instagram? I don't even
No,
remember how.
I don't. I think it was actually Plexus. Like I think
Oh,
I followed you because I was following other people that take Plexus and things like that.
see, that is one
And that
of,
was a while back.
yeah, that would have been a while ago. So it's been
Hmm.
a couple years at least, maybe
Hmm.
3 years. Um, and that's probably one of the best things that being a part of like a multi-level marketing company gave to me
Hmm.
was just relationships all over. I don't
Hmm.
do Plex as much anymore. I still
Me
love it,
either.
but it's just not like something that was part of my life anymore right now. Like I take the products, but I
I
don't
take the
sell it
products. I don't,
anymore.
yeah, I don't have time
Yeah,
for anything else.
exactly. Exactly. But I love the gifts that it's given me, like you. I've met so many amazing people just by being active on social media. So
Yeah.
that is pretty cool. But um, you'll see, you guys will kind of see why we've connected. But she has a beautiful heart and an amazing story. But I'm just going to go ahead and hand this over to you for a second, Melissa, so you can tell us who you are, where you're located, and kind of what you do.
Okay. Well, we live in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, which a lot of people don't even realize is a state. And we are about 80 miles west of Washington, D.C. I was born and raised in Maryland, which is a neighboring state to this area. My husband is from here. Um, and I work as a therapist. I'm a licensed professional counselor in West Virginia, and I primarily see kids and teens. And when you work with kids and teens, you do a lot of work with their families. And I also see couples for marriage counseling. My husband and I have been married. This year was 25 years.
Aw.
And we have 7 amazing kids that range in age from 30 to 17 and 5 grandbabies that are the light of my life.
Aw.
Um, and that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I am pretty busy with family and work. That's about the gist of my life there.
Yeah, well, 7 kids will do that.
Even when they're adults, they're still time
Yes.
consuming.
Yes. And is it true that your youngest just graduated from high school?
She did 7 months early after a really long and interesting journey with her. It was like one of those, yes, we did it moments. So we celebrated this weekend.
That is so cool. Congratulations on that.
Thank
That's a
you.
huge milestone. So, lots of exciting stuff going on in your life. And you have all these teen and adult children, which we will definitely chat about.
We will.
But anyway, your story really is just like so perfect for this podcast. And
Mhm.
you know, my heart for adoption. I'm an adoptive mom and um really in a different way than you was thrown into the deep end of like coming to understand what adoption looks like and what it means and all the different effects that happen there. And your story is definitely much more like this was a real life experience for you for a
Mhm.
very long time. So I
Yeah.
would love for you to share just kind of what your experience has been and just whatever's on your heart to share about your story today.
Okay, sure. I'm so excited to be here, Gabi. I'm really appreciative that you're having me. Um, my probably journey to becoming an adoptive parent started back when I was a child. I had a pretty chaotic childhood with parents who struggled, I think, looking back now with their own trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, as a child, you don't understand that and you just think your parents are crazy.
Right.
Um, and my dad went through phases, and one of his phases was uber religious, part of a Seventh-day Adventist sect. And I grew up with a very legalistic, punitive view of God. And I found my worth through being perfect and not making mistakes and earning my place in heaven and all those things. I was sexually abused as a child. And when we went through a crisis as a family, is when we moved to West Virginia when I was 10 years old. My dad was kind of like removing us from extended family and kind of isolating us, and was very successful in finding a little corner of West Virginia to do that in. When I was in middle school age, I was actually homeschooled, but I was seeing a counselor, and I confided in her about some things happening in my home and in my family. And my brothers and I were then removed from our home and placed in foster care.
Wow.
And the hardest part, the most traumatic part of that for me was being separated from my little brothers. My
Mm.
mom struggled with profound depression, to the point, of not getting out of bed for days and at a time and things like that. And so I was their primary caregiver when my dad was not home, and was the one they came to when they had a nightmare and things like that. So it was really hard, to not know where they were, to not know if they were okay.
Yeah.
Um, Eventually, I landed in a kinship placement with my paternal grandparents, who were both very busy, very successful professionals. So they took ninth grade me and put me in an all-girls private boarding school,
Wow.
7 days a week. And I think they thought that they were doing the right thing. They could catch up my education, and all those things. But I had been a sheltered child for most of my life. And so these rich girls who I would go home with on the weekends and things like that, introduced me to a plethora of ways to numb the pain that I was
Mm.
going through. When I was 15, I say I ran away from my grandparents, but I really ran to my mom. I really wanted to force her to parent me because she was expecting another baby.
Wow.
Um, and that did not last for very long. The reasons, that I shouldn't have been with her in the first place were still an issue. And so I ended up on my own at 16. I was renting a room, I was working a drive-through, and I found myself pregnant. Um, and determined. I remember being a very determined, calloused young lady, who was going to do all the things by myself. And I didn't need God, and I didn't need anybody to tell me what to do because I had it. Once I decided to parent, I vacillated between abortion and parenting.
Sure.
And once I made that decision, I determined that I was going to parent in a completely different way than I had been parented. And I didn't know what that looked like, but I was bound and determined to figure it out. And I'm a voracious reader. I always have been. And so I was going to the library and, checking out every parenting book I could, and really trying not to internally freak out that a human was going to be completely dependent on me. I turned 17 that January, and I was about 4 months pregnant, and I met the man that would become my husband.
Wow.
He wasn't intimidated by the fact that I was pregnant. I did lie to him about my age. I told him I was 19, and who wouldn't believe me since I was completely independent.
Yeah.
But anyway, he had a 2-year-old son that was from a previous relationship. And he kind of had the parenting experience that I didn't have, which turned out to be a really good thing because I was a hot mess and smoked throughout my pregnancy, just didn't do, very smart things as far as taking care of me, not realizing the impact it can have on a baby.
Mhm.
So Jared was born about 5 weeks early and was in the NICU for a little while because he didn't have a sucking reflex yet. And I was very overwhelmed. And my husband was amazing. And he adopted Jared legally when Jared was 2. We quickly had another son, Matt, the following year. And by the time I was 20, I became an adoptive mom. My
Wow.
husband's son was removed from the care of his mom, and her rights were terminated for abuse and neglect. And he came to live with us when he was 6 years old. And
Wow.
so I have been parenting a trauma affected child for a really long time.
Wow.
Um, and I didn't know what I didn't know back then.
Mhm.
Again, voracious reader. So I read like The Explosive Child by Dr. Ross Green, which I still recommend to parents today. But there wasn't a lot of research that supported trauma's effect on the brain and things like that.
Mhm.
I had an inherent bond with him because I understood what it was like to be
Yeah.
taken away from everything you've ever known. Even if it's not a good situation, it's still so disconcerting, just to be, plucked from everything that's familiar to you. And so we did the best that we could with him when he was little. Looking back, I have apologized to him because I have regrets for the ways that we handled some things because we didn't know better.
Mhm.
But he wouldn't tell you that story. Like, he doesn't see it that way. But I think with my professional lens and my educational lens and things like that, I'm like, oh, why did we do that? But he's turned out great. He's 29 years old now. He's married. He's an amazing dad.
Oh,
Yeah, we couldn't be prouder of him.
so awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Um, and then we were just raising kids, doing the best that we could. I took one college class at a time. I had gotten my GED when my youngest biological son, Matt, was a baby, through a teen mom support group at a local church, that kind of introduced me to a different concept of God than I was
Mm.
used to. But mostly they just encouraged me that, just being a young mom didn't mean I had to throw away all my potential and my dreams and all those kinds of things. And so
Wow.
I'm still friends with the lady that ran that. And then in 2007, I started having some really weird health issues.
Mm.
And I like to say that trauma made me sick. I realize that now that, research supports the fact that there's a strong correlation between your ACE score and developing an autoimmune disorder. And so it took the doctors a while to figure out that what was causing my symptoms was systemic lupus. But I definitely know now that there is a huge connection to the things that I'd been through as a child and developing an autoimmune disorder so young.
Yeah.
Um, in 2008, I had, it's funny because I wasn't a fan of the person that was president back then. And my husband and I were in bed watching him address the nation. And so I always have blamed this on him just in jest. But my husband said, I turned to him and said, it feels like there's an elephant sitting on my chest. And then I passed out. And it turned out
Oh,
that I
wow.
had what's called a saddle pulmonary embolism that had gone up into my lungs and divided into a bunch of different clots. And I'm actually thankful for that. That was my first major health emergency.
Wow.
And it was the catalyst for my healing, my
Mm.
emotional healing. That was a very existential moment for me to realize that, to have the doctor say, like, you were blue and cyanotic and you didn't have a pulse and you're still here, a couple months before my 30th birthday,
Oh my
really just
gosh.
made me reevaluate everything. And I started therapy when I got out of the hospital.
Oh my
And that was
gosh.
truly, I think, the most transformational um, thing that I've ever done for myself. Not only did I start off on this healing journey that's been absolutely just transformative, but it also showed me what I wanted to do with the rest of my life as
Wow.
well. Yeah,
Wow.
pretty cool.
So cool. Oh my gosh.
Um,
Yeah, keep going. Go for it.
okay. I'm trying to hit the highlights here for you. When you said share your story, I'm like, what were the important things of this crazy
You're
43 years?
doing you're doing
Um,
amazing.
so therapy introduced me to the concept of like intergenerational trauma. And that's when I
Mhm.
really started to kind of look back at my parents, and their parents and realize that, the things that had happened to me hadn't been done to me to hurt me, right? They were out of the pain that they had experienced in their own childhood. That really freed me in a lot of ways. And it opened the door to one of the sweetest parts of my life. I hadn't spoken to my father in 13 years when I
Wow.
had that health event. I hated him with a passion and a fury that I can't describe. I used to have
Wow.
dreams that he would die, and I would go to his funeral to make sure he was dead. Like, I
Wow.
hated him. Um, and hate is toxic. And I know that anger played a big part in, me developing an autoimmune disorder. But when I had that existential moment of, oh my gosh, I could have died, I just was filled with this desire and this compassion
Mm,
almost. My dad had reached out to me during those 13 years, wanting to apologize, wanting to mend fences. I was always rejecting those impulses that he had. I didn't trust it. I didn't trust myself. And so that year I turned 30 and I told my husband what I wanted for my 30th birthday. Now that I had the energy to walk through an airport without being short of breath, was to go to Florida and see my brothers. I hadn't seen
mm,
them in years and years and years. I'd talked to them on the phone, but I hadn't seen them in a long time, and I wanted to spend time with them. And in the back of my mind, I had the possibility of, and maybe I'll go see my dad.
mm.
Well, I was on the plane to Florida and I just started writing. And I wrote a 9-page letter, front and back, of everything I was angry at him about.
Wow.
And I was praying and I was crying. Like, the person next to me must have thought I was a lunatic. And I told God, I was like, if he can acknowledge these things, which is something he had not been able to do in the past, like, okay, I will open my heart to him. I don't know if you're familiar with Isaiah 58, but that became what I opened my Bible to in the hospital during that health crisis. And beautiful passage that became my life chapter. But in
Aw.
it, it says that you won't turn your back on your own flesh and blood. And I told God, I was like, if, then maybe I won't turn my back on him. And so I got off the plane and shocked the heck out of my brothers, because I was like, I want you to take me to Dad's house.
Oh,
And
wow.
they're like, right now? And I was like, yes, before I lose my nerve, I just want to go. So my dad had no idea we were coming.
Oh
I
my
show up
gosh.
for the first time in 13 years, and I hand him this letter and I said, go read it, and then we can talk.
Wow.
And he did. He went outside, he read it, he came in, tears streaming down his face. And he said, I can't dispute anything in here. And I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, if you give me the chance, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. And that was 13 years ago. And my
Yeah.
dad and I have rebuilt an absolutely beautiful relationship.
Oh
And
my
that,
gosh.
when you say from pain to passion, like, I'm so passionate about the concept of family
Mm,
and the concept of not holding on to the pain, being willing to work through it and to see what's on the other side of it. Because I would have never in a million years, for so many years, guessed that my dad and I would reconcile, let alone have like this beautiful friendship that we've developed.
wow.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That's incredible.
Um, and so it was in that year that I also became involved in a ministry to teen moms, which of course was a passion, because I had been one. And through that, we met our next daughter. She was one of the moms in the ministry that my best friend and I ran. And when it came time to have her baby, she and I had developed a friendship. And she had aged out of the foster care system a couple months earlier.
Mm.
She was couch surfing. For the last couple weeks before the baby came, she was couch surfing between my house and my best friend's house. And we were trying to find some type of solution for her, because I knew that if she was homeless when the baby was born, they wouldn't let her keep it. And we were doing everything we could, pulling out all the stops, visiting her extended biological family, like doing everything we could think of to do. And she went into labor at church with us one Sunday.
Wow.
And I was with her when she had to have an emergency C-section. And the next day, the social worker came into the room, and as God would have it, I had gone to school with her, to college, a couple social work classes together. And so she was asking my daughter, who was not my daughter at the time, obviously, where do you and the baby live? Do you have everything you need? All these things. And she answered her honestly. And I could see by the look in her face that this wasn't going to be, a positive outcome. And so I asked to speak to her out in the hall. And I said, if I give you my word that she and the baby come home with me until we find them a safe, viable option, like, will you please not make the referral to CPS? And she agreed.
Oh my gosh.
Because of our personal relationship. And so Shayla and the baby came home with me and our 3 teenage sons. And after a couple of weeks, our middle son, who was 13, 14 at the time, one of those, not good at math, but he came to us and he was like, why does she have to go anywhere else? Like, she's already here.
Oh.
And yeah, he said, they're part of our family now. He was like, I'll give up my room and I'll move in with Matt
Oh my
if you'll let
gosh.
them stay. And so they became part of our family. And she wanted to go off to Job Corps and get, some job training and things like that. And she was worried about what would happen to the baby while she was gone, because she didn't want any of her biological family, who, once she moved in with a family that didn't look like her, there was a lot of animosity towards us, even though I had sat on, their couch and asked them to take her in 2 months before that.
Wow.
And so she was afraid that they would, challenge us keeping Lariah while she was gone. And so went to talk to an attorney about like what were the possibilities of protecting everything while she was away. And the attorney was like, well, you can adopt an adult, because she was 19 by that time. And I was like, you can? Like,
Oh
I
my
had
gosh.
no idea you could do that. And
Wow.
so that excited her so much. She said, you'll be stuck with us forever. And so we adopted her, and then I was Lariah's grandmother. And so it was very natural for her to just stay with us while her mom was gone for those couple of months. And so we got a daughter and a granddaughter in one fell swoop.
It's amazing.
It was crazy. And then a couple years later, I had been really motivated to move to Florida and be close to my brothers and like make up for lost time. And my husband was like kind of not feeling that. And God changed his heart. And in 2013, we moved to Florida and we spent 4 wonderful years there. My husband had always promised me that when our youngest son graduated from high school, we could become foster parents. And so in 2015, Matt graduated from high school. I started grad school and we became foster parents.
Oh, wow.
Basically the month of May.
Oh my
That
gosh.
all happened. It was crazy. And we got our first placement in July. And by 2016, we had 3 new daughters in our family that
Aw.
would eventually, become permanent parts of our family. Um, and then I had another major health event. Um, it was kind of the perfect storm, because of, just the stress of having all these kids. We had 3 placements at once, which we were licensed for 1. So that tells
Wow.
you a story. We had 3 placements at once. We had our youngest son at home. We had our oldest daughter and her 2 kids at home. My mother-in-law had a health crisis and was living with us. Thankfully, we had this big multi-generational, house, but life was really hectic. And I was
Mhm.
case manager, running all over the place, and just really stressed. And if you remember 2016, things that were happening on a kind of bigger scale, were also really causing me stress. I had never really considered myself too political before then,
Mhm.
but that was a really hard year for me.
Mhm.
Um, and then we had a crisis with my youngest brother. Well, not my youngest brother, my youngest from the 3 of us that were in foster care. Um, he and his wife had a problem with addiction, that kind of came out of nowhere, and their children entered the system, and
Oh, wow.
my home was full and beyond full. And um, that was really, really hard. Thankfully, they went to a kinship placement with her family, and I got to keep them on the weekends. But I was really upset, as you can imagine, that, my niece and nephew were kind of placed in the same position that we had been. Um, and so I got this really horrific headache.
Mm.
I had it for 11 days. I went to the emergency room 3 times. I went to the chiropractor.
Oh
Like,
my
I was
gosh.
asking them to please figure out what's wrong with me because I have a really high pain tolerance and I almost can't tolerate this. Um, and finally, a neurologist saw me in her office and realized what was happening and sent me back to the hospital, which she almost had to force me to go back, um, and did the correct scan and realized that I had a massive clot in my brain that was occluding blood flow to the left side of my brain, like completely.
Oh my
And
gosh.
the buildup of fluid and all of that was what was causing this horrific headache.
Oh my gosh.
Um, and so that was the end of October of 2016. And during my recovery, which I came home in a wheelchair,
Wow.
um, and needed, physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy and all these things, um, I was pretty bitter.
Mm.
I was feeling pretty bitter towards God. Like, look at all these things, back to that legalistic view that was kind of ingrained in me. Like, look at all these good things I'm doing for you, and this is what
Mhm.
you let happen to me.
Mhm.
I was feeling very sorry for myself. And then election night of that year happened, and I started on this deconstruction journey of my faith. It was like,
Mhm.
it was another 2008, just kind of existential, like, what the crap is happening?
Uh-huh.
And it was interesting and beautiful. And that journey has been a big part of my pain to passion story.
Yeah.
The losing my faith and finding my faith and it looking completely different than it ever has, but stronger than it ever has, if that possibly makes any sense.
It does.
We moved back to West Virginia in 2017 because I was really sick and my husband had amazing health benefits at his old
Mm.
job. And our health benefits in Florida had been through my job that I couldn't go back to. And then I really did not want to come back. But I'm glad that we did. And for a lot of reasons, it's just been really good for me and for our family. But yeah, and that pretty much, I mean, there's other things, but that pretty much sums up where I am. I graduated from grad school in 2019 and became a therapist. And this past January, I launched into my own private practice and primarily working with foster and adopted kids and their families.
Wow. Girl.
Did I hit all the highlights?
That is a story. And I know that I had to like hold back tears. So I can imagine that some people listening to this are definitely in tears right now. Just like so much beauty and so much pain. And so, like, everything in between. I'm going to start from the beginning.
Yeah.
First of all, you and I have even more in common than I thought.
Oh,
We have other things that aren't in common, but just like growing up in a really religiously legalistic atmosphere,
yeah.
being homeschooled.
Mhm.
Yep, that was me too.
I mean, don't get me, and gosh, I can talk with my hands. I can't stop no matter what I do.
It's okay. Talk with your
Don't get me
hands.
wrong. I have lots of friends that do homeschool really well for
Oh,
their
yeah.
kids,
Mhm.
and bless them, bless them. But that was not my experience. And
Yeah.
I was not schooled, which was
Mm,
part of the problem.
yeah.
But I did read a lot, and I think that was probably my saving
Totally.
grace. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. But I was like, oh, yeah, that's probably why, we just get
We
it.
clicked.
And homeschool back then, too,
Was very
was
different.
so different than it is now.
Yeah.
That was like pioneer homeschool era, not area, era. And
Back then
there
in
were
the
a lot of things that just kind of became prevalent in the homeschool world that are not existent so much anymore, which
right.
is probably a good thing.
A good thing.
Yeah. But it's really interesting because you related back to that legalistic upbringing, and then getting sick a long time later
Mm-hmm.
and being like, okay, God, like
Drawn
I
right back
have
into
been
that.
such a good girl.
Mhm. Yep.
And
Enneagram
here
1.
you are
Mhm.
doing this
Yep.
to me.
Yep.
Like, how could this doesn't add up?
Mm-hmm.
Which, from a therapist perspective, now that you have,
Right.
I'm kind of curious to know like how you ended up having to unpack that, which I'm sure has been part of your deconstruction process.
Absolutely.
But because you separated from that legalistic situation, you were unhappy about it, you were mad that your dad treated you certain ways, like
Mm-hmm.
all of those things. And yet it was so ingrained in your psyche, right? That was how
Years and years
God
and years later.
worked,
Mm-hmm.
which I just can relate to so much. Still to this day, it hits me and I'm like, wait a second, that's not how this works.
Yeah. It's hard.
Actually,
And I
not
think
how
it's
this
something,
works.
honestly, that I'll battle forever.
Yeah.
It gets easier. It gets
Mm-hmm.
easier. But when that little girl in me is triggered, that's all she
Mm-hmm.
knows.
Yeah.
And it didn't help that during the clot stroke crisis, there were people that I respected um, in our spiritual community at the time that told me that having LGBTQ placements in our home was what invited
Oh my
um,
gosh.
this to happen to me.
Oh
That
my
didn't help.
gosh.
We moved from, looking back, I moved from that legalistic, punitive, cultish world that I grew up in to evangelicalism,
Mm-hmm.
which for me was not as far removed from the previous belief system as I thought it was.
Yeah.
And so that's what I had to deconstruct. Like, how do I make sense of God, who I do have a personal relationship with,
Mm-hmm.
right? How do I make sense of him in the context of this? Because it
Yeah.
doesn't feel right to me. And knowing that, I think grad school did a lot of things for me, one of which was open my eyes to the patriarchal kind of history of religion,
Mm-hmm.
and the misogyny that kind of attracted my dad, I think, back then to something like that.
Sure.
Um, And so learning how much of it was God and the Bible and how much of it was culture and the patriarchy and all of these systemic things really helped me. And I did a huge deep dive into LGBTQ theology at that point as well, because I was being exposed to it in a way I never had been
Yeah,
before. And if there's anything about me, I am a mama bear to whoever needs me to be. Um,
absolutely.
and so having those girls with me, I was like, okay, no, what I've believed doesn't make any sense anymore because I'm
Mm,
looking at someone who's beautifully made in the image of God.
yeah,
Um, and so I had to make sense of that as well.
yeah, yeah. So much untangling to do,
Yeah.
but you were motivated,
Oh, and I
right?
had so much time on my hands, girl. I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't drive. I couldn't walk, couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. Like I couldn't do
Wow.
anything. So I had all this time on my hands to read and listen to podcasts and dissect and talk to God. And yeah,
Yeah,
that helped.
wow. Which is probably why you say that crisis was a blessing at this
Mhm.
point,
Both
right?
of those health crises were ended up being hugely pivotal moments in my life of healing.
Isn't
Yeah.
that interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? And that's really what this podcast is all about. Like, these are
Mhm.
exactly the kinds of stories that I want to share. Because if there's anything at this point that I'm learning to understand about God, it's that nothing is wasted and He is so
Right.
intentional.
Yes.
And I was saying this, I think, a couple weeks ago to a friend where there have been these moments where I've been literally kicking and screaming and being like, what the heck, dude?
Oh yeah,
Like,
it was not pretty. It was not pretty.
and yeah, you're human. We go through these things where we're like, what in the world? This does not add up. This does not make sense. This
It is
doesn't
not
feel
fair.
loving. And I am not okay with this right now.
Mhm.
And how my experience has been, and you can tell me how, and if you relate to this, but how he hears it and
Mhm.
he feels that with me.
Mhm.
And yet
He doesn't
he's
leave.
like, I see this big picture, like, baby girl.
Mhm.
I know, like, this is so hard. And then later, I finally get to see a glimpse, a glimmer of what he saw in
Right.
that moment. And it just makes me so grateful for those situations that felt completely out of control. Is that kind of how you have
Oh my
felt?
gosh, absolutely. And it was ugly. Like I told him exactly how I felt. Like God and I had some heart to hearts.
Yeah.
Um and but I never felt his presence leave.
Mm,
And I think that that was a really powerful thing for me because in my life experience, everybody leaves at some point.
hmm.
Um, I went through a really ugly kind of estrangement from my grandparents when we started when our daughter moved in.
Oh, wow.
Um, and that was really like kind of life earth shattering to me because they were people that had just always been there even when I ran
Mm,
away, even all those things, they were still always there for me when I let them be. And it was the first time in my life they weren't, and that was very disconcerting. And so I expected when I shook my fist at God and said, no, I'm not going to listen to you anymore, like this is how I really feel about this crappy situation. And you're just letting it happen yet again to me,
hmm.
feeling like such a victim. And we can get so stuck in that.
Yeah.
Um, but he didn't leave. And I think that's what fueled me to keep like pressing in. Okay,
Yeah.
he can handle that feeling. Can you handle this question? Can you tell me why this? Um, and I've really gotten comfortable with not knowing some things. Um, which is not my personality. I need to know and have a plan and
Uh-huh.
understand. And I've just discovered with God that, like you said, everything is very intentional and I don't have to understand it for it to one day make sense.
Yep. Absolutely. Dang it. I don't have to understand it for it to one day make sense. Oh,
Right.
it's in someone else's hands. What?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting here listening to you say like how you kept realizing God didn't leave,
Mhm.
and how you kept throwing more things out there, more feelings, like your real raw feelings, and just to relate it back to adoption,
Mhm.
like that is such a picture of being like an adoptive family to me.
Mhm. Oh my
Like,
gosh, yeah. I've never
and
had any raw, ugly feelings come my way.
oh, never, never. But that's been one of the most eye-opening things for
Mhm.
me as an adoptive parent who also loves God.
Mhm.
And it's been like such a process to unravel like all of these feelings going between me and the kids and all
Mhm.
of these things, and realizing like this is my trauma
Mhm.
that is coming out towards God,
Mhm.
of like, what happens if I say no when you lean in? What happens if I kick you when you're
Right.
trying to bless me? Or
Right.
what happens? Like, he always comes back. He always comes back.
Mhm.
And that is not at all to say that I am like God at all.
No, and no. No, I wish I could be.
No, right.
Um,
It's shown me my weaknesses
but
more than anything.
I am no matter what. And I
Mm,
mean it when I say that, and my kids know that, that even when I'm mad and I'm hurt, I'm not going anywhere.
yeah.
And I know how powerful that is, like you said,
Hmm.
because he didn't leave.
Yeah.
And I also know that he didn't take it personally. And I have to
Hmm.
remind myself of that a lot as an adoptive mom.
Yeah.
Uh, trauma affected kids can say some really mean things when they're mad. And I have, like, I said horrible things to my foster parents and my grandparents, out of
Hmm.
my own pain.
Yeah.
Um, but it feels very personal in that moment.
Hmm.
And I wasn't mad at God. I was mad at the situation.
Right.
And so I try to remind myself of that when I'm in those hard moments with my kids,
Hmm.
that they're not mad at me. Like, they're mad that this is their life at all, right?
Yeah.
Like, that they've had to go through these things.
Yeah.
And I hope that my life can shine towards the light at the end of their tunnel too.
Hmm.
It's one of the reasons I'm as transparent as I can be about my story and about my life, is so that my kids can see authenticity from me. Um, they can see that it's safe to not keep secrets, and that my husband and I are gonna be there for them no matter what.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, that continuation over time, like that's where healing happens. It's like so transformational, not just for them, but for you too.
Right.
So transformational for everyone involved if you're willing. It takes a lot of humility, right?
It does.
Willing to lean into that process with your kids and with the mess that exists between all of you. And
And with their families.
yeah.
We have really active relationships with a lot of their biological families, and those relationships are beautiful, but they're
Mhm.
messy.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful, messy relationships.
Mhm.
Yeah. Those those are also the treasures of life in so
They
many
are.
ways, aren't
They
they?
are.
Yeah. I mean, do you ever think like, why? Like, what am I doing? I'm sure there have been moments when you're overwhelmed, but I can also imagine you're incredibly grateful, right?
I am. Yes. I am grateful. I was actually just came up in my Facebook memories, this thing from 2015 that I was in, just started grad school, and I was like, and my ultimate goal is to work with foster kids and their families.
Mhm.
And I read that this morning, and I'm like, that's what I do.
Look
Like,
at you.
yeah, like 7 years later. And I'm so incredibly grateful for that.
Mhm.
So incredibly grateful that I get to use my pain for a purpose
Mhm.
every single day.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and sometimes I have to pinch myself that I'm getting to do what I've always wanted to do. And that my healing continues because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
things come up for me. A
Hmm.
client might be the age that I was when I went into care. They might remind me of this, and that's something I need to go back and deal with.
Yeah.
Um, and it just invites me back to keep healing, because healing is a continuous journey, especially for those of us that have had childhood trauma.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's a gift that we're required to heal. One of my favorite coaches, Sarah Baldwin, I don't know if you follow her on Instagram. She's a somatic experiencing coach and she's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But she said on a video the other day that our greatest purpose requires our deepest healing,
Right.
and how that is both so hard and also the greatest gift.
That's a privilege. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. 2 Corinthians 1:3-4 says, that God comforts us so that we can then
Mm-hmm.
comfort others with the comfort we ourselves have received.
Yes.
And it's just this big circle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a big, beautiful circle if we allow it to be.
Yeah. I totally agree. Such a privilege.
Mhm.
And yeah, just thank you for your vulnerability, your transparency, for being willing to share your life. I know you're doing a lot of things and you have a heart for so many people, for your kids, for kids in the system, for moms. And like, I just love how you show up and all the things that you're doing. So thank you and keep it up. Um, and I would love for any listeners to be able to stay connected with you and reach out to you. What's the best way for them to find you? Is it Instagram?
Probably. I spend the most time there as far as a social media platform. And then I have a website, if anyone needed any foster or adoptive parent coaching services.
That's awesome. And I will be sure to include all of that in our show notes as well so that people can connect with you. And I feel like we could probably do another episode or two or three with
If
all
you
of the
could.
things that you have been gifted with and all the stories. And I just know you have a lot of depth and wisdom that would mean a lot to a lot of people. So I just want to thank you for sharing your story with us
Thanks for
today.
inviting me. It was so
And
sweet.
again, I feel like it's just the beginning of what you're able
Absolutely.
to share. So I'll be reaching out to you again to do this again
I
because
look
I
forward to it.
love this conversation. Like this is my heart. I'm like so happy right now.
I love that you provide a platform for these conversations.
It's
It
wonderful.
it
Like
helps people not feel alone.
yeah. Yeah, I really really hope that that is true. Stories are power.
Mhm.
They're so powerful.
Yes.
And like
How we
I've said,
overcome,
yeah,
right? The
how we
word of our
overcome. It's
testimony.
why we're so drawn to movies
Mhm.
and like epic books and
And
fairy
social media,
tales and social media.
right?
Absolutely, is because story like we're designed to be invested in each other's stories and to
Mhm.
see each other. Like I
Yeah,
see myself in your story, you see yourself in my story, and that's how we can connect. So any way that we can connect more people and make more people feel seen, like that's what it's all about, right?
for sure.
Is there anything else you want to share before I let you go?
I can't think of anything. My heart is for people to realize that we don't have to get stuck in the victim mentality. We don't have to get stuck in the sadness of our story and the pain of our story. If we're willing to work through those things, and that doesn't always feel good,
Right.
the healing that lies on the other side is so empowering
Mm.
and so powerful for other people as well, that it's worth every bit of work it takes to get there.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you. I mean, we didn't get to go dive even deeper into some of these elements of your story, but thank you for sharing that about your dad. I think
Yeah,
that was really, really powerful and something that a lot of us need to hear. I know personally I've been a little bit like, oh goodness, looking at a lot of things on social media where there's just so much anger towards parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I have work to do in this area too. So many of us do, but just how you worked through that and
Mm-hmm.
created this repaired relationship with your
Well,
dad,
and a
that's
lot of
really
that lies on
beautiful.
him, right? Because he was willing. All I needed was
Yeah.
that acknowledgement, that apology, that desire to do better. You know, my
Yeah.
mom and I don't have the same kind of relationship I'm able
Sure.
to have with my dad. It's much more
Mhm.
boundaried, um, because it lacks that depth.
Yeah, definitely. Um, but yeah, I just think it's beautiful the steps that you were willing to take and to let go of a lot of that anger
Mm.
that a lot of people have, you know, that
Yeah.
we feel
Well, and
entitled to.
we it helps us feel safe, right?
Hmm.
Because our anger keeps us away. That's what kept me away from him for all those years, and I thought
Yeah.
that's what I needed to be safe, and maybe
Hmm.
it was back then. Maybe it was
Yeah.
when I was, 15, 16. Um, but we can hold on to it because it serves a purpose for us, and we have to be willing to ask, "What purpose is this anger serving for me?"
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So, so good. See, here we go. Just launching right in. But thank you, friend. I appreciate you and I appreciate you taking this time. And we will chat again soon.
Sounds great.
I think you're pretty amazing. So
Ditto.
we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye.